All right, we are good to go.
All right. So it's Wednesday, February 5th, 2025 at 6:30 p.m. Item one on the agenda tonight, having quorum, I'll call the meeting to order. I'll read a quick governor's order. This meeting is being held remotely in accordance with the provisions of the open meeting law pursuant to the governor's approval of a supplemental budget bill. Temporary provisions pertaining to the open meeting law have been extended to March 31st, 2025. Specifically, this further extension allows public bodies to continue holding meetings remotely without a quorum of the public body physically present in a meeting location to provide adequate and alternative access to remote meetings. The language of this extension does not make any substantive changes to the open meeting law other than extending the expiration of the temporary provisions regarding remote meetings from March 31st, 2023 to March 31st, 2025. Members of the public are encouraged to participate remotely and shall address the questions through the chair of the board or the host, who's Mr. O'Brien this evening. The following members of the Bridgewater Planning Board are participating remotely this evening. Patrick Driscoll, the chair, Mr. Michael McDonald, the vice chair, and Mr. Stephen Geller. That's it at this point. During the meeting, all votes will be roll calls. The following Bridgewater Town staff is also with us this evening: Mr. Robert Rulli, our Community Economic Development Director, Mr. Shane O'Brien, the Town Planner, Mr. Greg Tansey, the Town Engineer, and Mr. Stephen Solari, the Building Commissioner. At this point, everybody's mics are muted. The board's mics will be unmuted through the whole meeting, and as items appear on the agenda, the project's representatives' mics will be unmuted. If the project is a public hearing and allows for public comment, we ask that you use the chat feature to ask your question by listing your name, your address, and your question. The chair or the host will recognize questions in order. You can also use the raise my hand feature in the participant menu, and you'll be unmuted when the chair or the host recognizes you. Again, please state your name and address before asking a question. If you're on the phone, you may also dial *9 to raise your hand. So I'll go back to the agenda. First item up, we have an approval not required, a Form A. This is for 593 Plymouth Street, also known as map 36, lot 7. Is the representative here to go over the plan?
Yes.
So Mrs. Baptista, go ahead. And just for everybody's information, we just did have Ms. MJ Spagon join us. She is an alternate member, but because we don't have a full board this evening, we'll be acting as a regular member. You good with that, MJ? Ms. Spagon? Jane, can you guys hear me?
No, I can hear you.
We can hear you.
No, I think MJ's got some of their audio. Oh, she's trying to get him in. MJ's here.
So she will be participating in voting this evening. So
Cool.
I am here, just having some issues with my computer again.
all right. So there's only 4 members, MJ. So you're going to vote on everything before us this evening, okay?
Yep.
All right. Thank you. So Mrs. Baptista, I'll go back to you.
Engineering for the plan of land in front of you. What we have here is the residence at 593 Plymouth Street, which is sandwiched between Edge Hill.
And Mrs. Baptista, just we know who you are, but if you, I don't know if you did it. We just didn't hear you. State your name and address for the record, please.
Silva Engineering, 1615 Bedford Street in Bridgewater.
Thank you.
So this property is sandwiched between Edge Hill to the east and Great Hill Drive to the west. We're a little tilted to the north. We're carving out the residence into its own lot and having a parcel 7B for the remaining backland.
Okay, and I saw that lot is 20,000. How many square feet? I just can't see it. Can you blow that up?
Of course, yes. We got 22,700. We've got the setbacks. We've got.
And that's residential D, is that correct?
That is correct. We have your building square in here. It's just a very large building.
And that's a single family dwelling?
Yes.
Okay. All right, and Mr. O'Brien, you did provide a memo, and I did review this, that this does comply with zoning.
Yes, I know that the intent, maybe down the road is either to do a retreat lot or maybe a subdivision on parcel 7B, but the goal here is that lot 7A does comply with residential D zoning, and that parcel 7B is stated to not be a buildable lot under the current zoning bylaws. So it meets the requirements of an A&R, and I have no issue with the planning board endorsing it.
Great, thank you. Mr. Solari, from a zoning perspective, do you have any comments or issues with the plan?
Nope, it meets all the requirements of D.
Board members, any questions or comments for the applicant or staff?
No, I'm good.
Okay, if we don't have any, does somebody want to make a motion to either endorse or not endorse?
Motion to endorse?
So motion to endorse by Ms. Pagone. Do we have a second?
Second.
By Mr. McDonald? Any discussion on the A&R plan? I'll take the roll call. Ms. Pagone?
Yes.
Mr. Geller?
Yes.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
And I'm a yes.
All right,
Okay.
Pat, come by anytime to sign.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Item 3, this is a continued public hearing for 43R, 43 rear Central Square, map 34, lot 66. This is site plan review under section 10.6 and special permits, section 6.1.4 and 9.6. This is to convert an existing manufacturing building into a mixed-use building with 6 units. This is continued from February 5th. I know we did receive a letter today from the applicant. Do we want to go over that letter, Mr. O'Brien, and pull that
Yeah,
up?
I'll bring it up. Just so we can discuss it, and the members of the public that are interested can check it out as well. It's also available on our page.
Okay, so
So-
this was received today to the planning board. It's a request for continuation. Dear board members, in response to comments and concerns that were received during the public hearing process, my client, James Balsamo, hereby requests that the public hearing be continued to March 19th, 2025. In the interim, my client and the project team will provide an updated site plan and architectural layout for a 2-story building with 4 apartments on the 2nd level. The change in design will reduce parking requirements, allow for the required 20% open space, and address concerns that were raised by the board members and the public. In addition, a letter report from my client's attorney will be provided that details the deeded right to the 20-foot wide access for passage and to connect the utilities. Finally, a letter agreement will be provided for off-site parking located within 500 feet of the site to support the commercial use of the first floor. All the above will be provided to the board no later than February 26th. That may be a little later now because it's the 19th instead of the 5th. Is that correct, Ms. Baptista, or was it still the 26th?
No, that is because of the meeting date change. So it may be a little bit later, but we still have a goal to shoot for that one, and it'll give you enough time to review it.
Okay, great. Thank you. To allow for the review. I know that 26th date was based on a March 5th request initially, correct?
That is correct, yes.
Sorry. So, all right, to allow for the review of the new information 1 week prior to the continued public hearing. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. Sincerely, Rebecca Baptiste, project manager. So we do have a request from the applicant to move this to March 19th. Is there anything from your team, Mrs. Baptiste, that you'd like to say or discuss before we make a motion?
No, except that February 26th is a little wishy-washy, and we hope to meet all the comments that were brought up in the last 2 meetings. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So is there any discussion amongst board members? If there are none, do we have a motion to continue this until March 19th, 2025
Motion to continue?
by Ms. Pagone? Do we have a second?
Second.
By Mr. Geller? So we have a motion, a second to continue to March 19th, 2025. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll pick the roll. Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Mr. Geller?
Yes.
Ms. Pagone?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Thank you very much. Okay, item 4. We have a tree committee mitigation discussion by Mr. Ray Jamian, excuse me, for the tree committee. He's the tree committee representative for the planning board. And he is here tonight to discuss a proposal that will be coming before us at some point, I believe. Correct, Mr. Jamian?
Yes and no. I mean, first, let me apologize for not coming before the board at an earlier date. I mean, I am the representative to the tree committee, and I should be reporting back to you earlier than I have. If I may, Mr. Chairman, let me just go give you a quick update at the tree committee, then we could deal with the mitigation issue, okay?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
All right, first of all, as you all probably know, we are a tree city now. We're officially a tree city as of 2024. For 2023, the application has to go in every year. We've sent in the application for the continuing as a tree city for 2024, and we probably won't hear from it for another 2 or 3 months, but I don't think there's any question that we will be approved again. Regarding that, we're late in getting the large tree city signs. We have them now, and you'll probably see them going up on telephone posts on the various streets that enter Bridgewater. So that's good. Arbor Day, we had an Arbor Day celebration last year and the year before, and we will have one again this year. You're all invited to come. We'll let you know. We had a tree forum last year. We'll have another one April 1st at the library regarding the planting and care of trees mainly. The issues, well, one of the issues we have is that we don't have an arborist on the tree committee. This began because the way the tree committee was set up by the past town manager, and we were required to have an arborist or somebody that met the qualifications of an arborist. But the town code required that committee members be residents of Bridgewater, and we could not find anybody. So we had somebody from the college, not the qualifications we wanted, but he sat on it for a while. In the meantime, I requested through the past town manager that the town code be changed for the tree committee, and it's been in process for 4 or 5 months, and I believe it was concluded last night. So we just have a 30-day waiting period. At the same time, by chance, we may have an arborist in Bridgewater anyway, so that would be good. My basic point is we should have an arborist or somebody close to it on the tree committee very soon, and that's important for us. The other issue we have is the tree warden position. We feel very strongly we need a tree warden, and I talked with the past town manager and the interim town manager, and obviously, as you all know, the town has an expense issue. We're working out some sort of a minor compromise, so we will get somebody that will be on call in a sense, hopefully fairly soon. And don't quote me on that, but that seems to be what we're working towards right now. But I think it's really important that we need somebody for various town officials to go to regarding trees as to whether they should be trimmed, cut down, and so forth. I think that's a real issue. The other two things that I brought up for tonight, again, Mr. Dutton over a year ago requested the tree committee revise chapter 290 regarding shade trees, and we have sent a revision to the manager's office, and it's there right now. So we're waiting to see what transpires. The other thing, and the issue tonight, is the tree mitigation. As I think most of you realize, when we revised zoning, a line was put in. If I can find it, can't find anything. A line was put in to the zoning, allowing for the planning board. Well, let me read it to you. This was to the present zoning It says, this is C2, clearing of vegetation and alteration of topography shall be replicated with native vegetation planted in distributed areas as needed to enhance or restore wildlife habitat. And then the line that was added says, as mitigation for tree removal, an applicant may be required to make an appropriate payment in lieu as a condition of special permit or site plan approval. And that's what we would like you to consider.
So,
Obviously, you can waiver anything, but
Mr. Jamie, I'm trying to, so what you just read was out of our zoning for large projects, correct?
correct, correct.
And then I'm just trying to make sure I'm following the right thing. Then your group sent over us a final draft dated 11/12/24, correct?
Correct. That, what we sent to you is what the tree committee came up with as a mitigation schedule. I should emphasize one point. The tree committee right now is operating off of funds that we have received from mitigation. That was, if you remember, Mr. Chairman, from the large warehouse on Bedford Street is where we got most of our money. We asked for mitigation money and they gave us some money. We've been told legally it's not a good idea to do it that way, that we should have a mitigation schedule. And that's why we came up with an actual schedule, which is based on some of the other towns and so forth. So that's what we submitted to the town manager's office, and you have, I believe, Shane, you had a copy of it also for you to look at and simply to make comment on as to what you think of it. We will have a schedule for sure. The question is in what form it is. So right now we have submitted it, and if you have any comments, changes, or whatever, by all means, we're open to listen to you. So that's it.
So Ray, just looking at this, I agree. I don't think we should just be asking developers for mitigation. I think that's dangerous. So, but based on the schedule, so let's just hypothetically, let's say I buy an acre lot and I'm building a single family home. Is every red maple tree that's greater than 4 inches considered significant?
No, see, that's a good point. The significant tree we could determine by either a tree warden, people from the tree committee, making a determination. I believe a significant tree will be defined in the new shade tree ordinance. So it could either be decided by certain trees cut down, or as you see in the formula, it could be simply by acreage. In terms of how much they would have to pay.
So I guess it says the recommended. So if I'm looking for tree cutting, right? I'm just trying to understand it.
Yep.
So if I buy a lot in a subdivision and I'm now gonna clear that lot, and there's nothing before the planning board because the lot's a Form A, it's already approved. How does this work in that case? So I go buy a lot on South Street. It's a town-owned road. There's no planning board approval process. They simply go to Mr. Solari. They meet the front, rear, and side setback lines. They meet the dimensional requirements, and they start clearing their lot.
That would be a private lot, and we would have no say over it. What we're talking about is if you get a subdivision and they have to clear some trees, you can require a payment based on the trees being cleared. But if somebody already has a lot, the tree committee has the town does not have, in terms of its laws, any power over private trees. So if somebody owns a private lot and they want to cut down 3 trees, they can do it without town approval.
Okay, so this is more for Ace Hardware just came in, for example, right? And they had a site plan before us. Why we're considering that site plan, we'd also consider this ordinance as well.
Exactly. That's what it's for. It's not for somebody, for instance, around the corner from me, one of the people that owned the house just cut down 10 trees. They did not have to go before the West Bridgewater. I don't believe anyway. planning board, anything to cut the trees down. The tree committee responsibility is only over public trees. In other words, that you look at in terms of planning board development or street trees, which most people don't really understand. The street trees are town property. Those are the only areas that we have any control over.
But when you say private lot, so if I'm doing a 10-lot subdivision, let's say, and that's before us, would consider the lots and the layout of the road and the drainage basin and everything, or would just consider the layout and the layout of the road? Because those would become private lots.
No, but in the process of being approved, though, if they're going to have to cut trees down for that subdivision, you can require mitigation.
Okay.
It's just like, it's almost as if you whatever you require sidewalks. Okay, so you require one sidewalk, whatever your normal requirements, mitigation will fit into your normal requirements for a subdivision or even a Form A.
So who, I mean, I don't think, I'm just trying to understand it. Just so that a plan comes to us and it says for cutting individual trees, it says, the planning board determines what's significant. So that's an additional responsibility would be taken on with the advice from the tree committee and the tree warden. How do you see that playing out? Like, so a project comes into us like we just had on Route 18, for example. Do we send this plan before we start anything to the tree committee and you guys go out and do a site walk? Does the tree warden go out and do a site walk?
It could be all of the above. I mean, it'd be just like you send plans to various other agencies within town to look at. So if you send a plan to Greg to look at, we send the plan, you send the plans to us also. Or the tree warden.
All right. What are the towns you said in the preface it talks about other towns it says that the recommended contribution schedule is based on, so Wellesley has the same ordinance, the same similar ordinance as this?
Number of towns do. I can't, I did not actually write this. A couple people on my committee did. And I believe they looked at some of the other towns. They obviously did, but the amount of money that's being required here has been lessened based on somebody like a Wellesley and so forth.
So, Mr. O'Brien, do you see this being part of our rules and regs, or would this go through zoning?
I would say it would have to be a separate document when it would come to site plan. I think you would have to make reference to our zoning ordinance that we do have some sort of mitigation schedule. But you would additionally need to, when it comes to subdivisions, you would have to update subdivision rules and regulations to include that as well. So it's essentially two separate actions. It doesn't necessarily have to be featured in the zoning ordinance, but I would say that in the site development standards, you should at least make reference to a mitigation schedule that would exist.
If I may, that probably makes sense, Shane, but this proposal is at the level of the town manager right now and legal. I think legal will probably have to make a determination as to where he wants to put it. If at all.
Sure thing. Yeah, I just would assume whenever, if it goes through the legal process of what we can do or can't do, if there was a resting point for it, that's where I would say those two locations would be.
So Shannon, if we adopt this as part of our, if we decide to adopt it or not adopt it, let's say we decide to adopt it or adopt it in some modified form or something like that, we would have to have anytime we amend our rules and regulations, we have to have a public meeting, a public hearing.
We'd have to notice in the newspaper and allow for public comment. So essentially is a public hearing. So that's pretty much what we would do. We do make reference to removal of vegetation as a land disturbance activity, as well as other references in terms of clearing of vegetation, but I would say, to Ray's point, we don't go into depth in terms of, adding a value to certain properties. What I can say, just kind of while we're talking about it, is that I would say that recently, well, since my time here as the board, or town planner, I'm sorry, working with the board, I feel like you guys have done a very substantially, good job in terms of tree protection. I would say the 815 Bedford Street is a good example. So I do feel like there should be, to Ray's point, a value to certain trees, but I do see it becoming problematic when it becomes a process where we're now asking for another committee for advice or comparative to what the process is now, where we ask for other departments for comments on certain plans. So as well as performing site visits and kind of looking at a value per tree on lot, I would say in some cases it would become problematic in terms of the amount of time an applicant would have to spend in terms of tagging trees, determining species of trees, and then counting up value for that, because we may get into some argumentative actions where an applicant may feel that a tree is not significant, whereas arborist may, and then you get into kind of a back and forth. Whereas, does a project depend on the value of a singular tree? So
Just another, Ray, what if I, just looking at this, it kicks in, if you, clear cutting kicks in if you clear more than a quarter of an acre, but let's say I clear a half an acre, right? And there are a number of trees that are deemed significant. But what if I want to, instead of paying mitigation, what if I want to replant some sizable trees on my own property to beautify it and to offset the tree cutting? Is that something that could be added in here so that people can have that option where they could replant? I mean, we talk about replanting and using native species anyway in our larger projects, but is that something that could be, you think, incorporated in here, that if they cut down 10 significant trees, they plant 10 trees of this list on their site with a certain diameter?
I suppose you could, Pat, but I mean, the planning board has the power to, negotiate anyway. You do it on any project you do. And if you say that, that the mitigation for cutting these trees down will be planting instead of money, you obviously have the right to waiver that. I don't see that as an issue. I'm not sure why, if that has to be written into it. I mean, it could be, you could recommend it. I'm just saying, it seems to me you have the ability to negotiate how you're going to apply the law.
Okay. How about other board members? Questions for Mr. Jemian?
I think the main thing is you as a board should decide if there are any changes needed in this document and send it to the town manager. Because she is the one that has it right now, and she is the one that will move it forward. I believe it's gone to council, I'm not sure. But she has both the shade tree ordinance and this mitigation schedule right now. So I think if you feel there are changes that need to be made, by all means, send them to her and copy me if you could. That would be good.
Okay, so any other board questions for Mr. Jemian while we have him here?
Not this time.
None from me, Mr. Chair.
All right, so do we want to take a couple of weeks and provide comments and back to Mr. O'Brien, and he can assemble a list of comments and provide them to the town manager from us? Do you think we have 2 weeks, Ray, or a week, or how fast is this moving?
My understanding of the way things move in this town, I think you have 2 weeks is fine. You have plenty of time. Obviously, we want to do this right. So if you feel there should be changes, by all means, send them in.
Mr. O'Brien, well, what do you think is a reasonable deadline for you? The 14th, today's the 5th, that'll give us 9 days, or?
Well, we can look at February 19th as just kind of
Okay,
set it before the board, and if, if the time comes and, life gets a little wacky, then, we look for March 19th. But
why don't we do this? Why don't we ask for anybody that wants to provide comments or discuss it with you to do that between now and the 19th? And we can put a follow-up for this on our agenda for the 19th and just say these are the comments that we're gonna provide to the town manager based on the feedback, right?
sounds good to me.
Anything else from staff or from the board before we move on? Anything, Mr. Jemming, anything else?
No, nice seeing you all again, though.
I appreciate you coming in, thank you.
Nice seeing you.
It's not a long meeting like we used to have. That's nice.
Well,
No.
tonight anyway.
Yeah, you should have been at the council meeting last night, though. That went in after 10, starting at
Oh.
6.
We watched.
Take it easy. Thanks, guys.
Take care, Ray.
Okay, so we'll ask for board comments, staff comments, public comments, whoever wants to make comments to Mr. O'Brien between now and the 19th, and we'll try to get a list of comments to the town manager at our 2/19 planning board meeting.
Yeah, let me, I'll place an item on the
Nice.
OneDrive under 2025 other items. And then
Okay.
you can check the Word document out over there for members of the public. So I'll drag that on there right now.
All right, so let's go to item 5. We have a lot of board business. I'll turn it over to you in a minute, Mr. O'Brien, but why don't we go through, we have planning board minutes for, now, I believe what you sent us was up to October 16th, not November 6th. If
I sent November 6th today.
I didn't read those yet.
That's okay.
And if everybody else had a chance to read them, if we just got them today, we can vote on September 18th and October 6th. Is that what everybody feels comfortable with?
Yeah, that sounds fine.
All right, so do we have a motion to accept the minutes of September 18th, 2024 and October 16th, 2024?
Motion?
So somebody said so moved. Who was that? Mr. Geller?
I'll second it.
Second by Ms. Pagan. Any discussion on those? So Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Ms. Pagan,
Yes.
Mr. Geller?
Yes.
Let me yes, and then I didn't have a chance to read 11/6/24. Is everybody okay with tabling those to the 19th?
Just gonna throw more minutes at you on the 19th, though. I'm on a roll right now.
All right, so we have Mr. O'Brien can update us, but I think most of us know that now that we have a resignation from Ms. Rojas. She's no longer going to be part of the board.
Mhm.
And then Mr. O'Brien, why don't you give us an update on 145 Winter Street?
Sure thing. 145 Winter Street. So I went over there, reviewed the as-built plan, and it was pretty much in conformance. Myself and Greg Tansey went over there. The one issue that we noticed over, as well as the applicant noticed, let us know about, was that the stormwater detention basin wasn't able to handle. I think it's the 100-year storm. I think they said that it could handle a 2-year or 5-year storm. So that was kind of the remaining issue for that property. So what I've kind of looking it over, I kind of said to them, as long as they can provide us what the cost of the work would be, I'd be fine with the TCO for the property. So the applicant did provide us a $10,000 check, bank check, for for us to hold until the stormwater is done. They let me know that they would probably be able to get it done minimally by May. So I'm just looking for the board to accept that $10,000 bond. They would still be held under a TCO. Whereas at some point they would be asking for a release of that bond and we would give them a full CO for that property.
So, Mr. Tansey, how much was the elevation off in the bottom of that drainage structure?
Yeah, it wasn't the bottom elevation that was so much off. It was too narrow. It should have been wider. And that was the volumetric component that resulted in the basin being too small so that it couldn't handle the 100-year storm. There is room on the lot to build the basin per plan. We also did notice that there was
Well,
some land.
how could there not be room in the lot if it was put in the wrong place?
No, it wasn't put in the wrong place. It just wasn't built out to the dimensions that it was supposed to be.
How many feet off is it?
I would say it's probably, well, it's a wedge shaped basin per se. It's almost rectangular, but it's somewhat of I think it flares at one end, and I'd say there's probably 20 feet. I'm just guessing by memory. I didn't actually measure it.
It's off 20 feet wide?
In the widest area, I would say somewhere around there. I don't have an exact dimension.
So it's not like a foot or two, like it's 20.
No. Oh,
20
no.
Mhm.
He has to do earthwork out there and restore it to the dimensions that the plan was approved by.
But I guess my question is, if it was supposed to be 10 feet wide, how wide is it? I mean, are we talking this thing's off a foot or it's off 20 feet, like you just said?
No, it's not off a foot. It's off a significant amount where he's going to have to build it per plan. Otherwise, it won't handle the 100-year storms.
How many square feet of land how many square feet do you think it's off?
I mean, I would just be guessing. I did not measure it. I just saw that it was off significantly, and we all agreed that it had to be restored to the dimensions of the plan. But I mean, just going by memory, I'd say the widest part probably is, maybe it's 10, 20 at the
So what's under the grass there? Is it stone? Are there chambers? I don't remember. What's there?
No, the chambers are underneath the pavement. And the bottom area of the basin, they had let naturalized. It was vegetated. I don't know whether I don't think they lined it with stone.
But under the grass, there's not a couple feet of stone or anything like that?
I don't think we approved it to have stone underneath.
It's not ringing a bell. I don't have the plan in front of me right now.
But we have a drainage basin that's off 20 feet. And
it's off significantly. I would estimate in one area, it's probably in that area. I could be wrong. Maybe it's only 10, but it's off enough that it won't.
Who gave us the estimate that it's only $10,000 to fix this?
Well, that came from the applicant. So what they let us know is that it's probably a day or two. It's probably.
Did the applicant get a price from somebody other than the person that installed it?
No, it would be the contractor is going to be going back out, and the person that messed up has to go out and fix it. So the number that we came up with was $10,000 in terms of the day's worth and 2 days worth of work.
So we don't even know what needs to be done, and we're saying it's only, how are we putting a value on
it's a value that we did.
I thought it was off a little bit. I didn't realize it was off 20 feet. I mean, that's a that could have impacts to the abutters. So, I mean, that could be a problem.
It'll fit on the lot. Again,
No, I know it'll fit on the lot, but it has to be
Yeah.
done, and there could be issues if it's not built properly now, correct?
right, it's too small right now.
Mr. Chairman,
Ms. Pagan, go ahead.
I certainly share a concern with you about the amount of estimate, knowing that this is work that has to be repaired more or less. How much of an effect would this have on the rest of the site around it immediately? If they're gonna fix this detention basin and they're giving us an estimate of $10,000, what is to say there won't be additional work that's gonna need to be done in the surrounding part around that detention basin if something causes maybe subsidence of the soil, or maybe the groundwork isn't been installed the right way behind that? What is the likelihood that this $10,000 estimate is accurate? Because as far as I can tell, when you complete something and then you go back in and dig it up, you're running the risk of damaging the site around it. What is the likelihood that that could happen, especially with the size of the site, with the size of the detention basin, and the amount of work that's going to need to be done, and the amount of disturbance upon the groundwork around that detention basin? I feel like $10,000 is low considering what the cost could be.
Well, and I guess as Ms. Pagan was speaking, and I apologize, is the applicant here to discuss this?
No, this is coming from staff. No, as stated, we granted them a TCO because the project is in substantial completion, with the exception of the drainage work. So the
So I
applicant,
guess my question is, how much is the drainage work off?
well, I would say that they stated to us at least 1 day or 2 days of work. From that standpoint, I made the determination. Pat, okay, let me finish.
But I guess based on the plan, what's not done?
The stormwater detention basin, Pat.
Right, but you just said it's off by 20 feet. I mean, that's a lot. That if it's 20 by 100 feet long.
Well, I would like to also state that the season is also affecting this. So the applicant can go back in and start doing the work once it's around springtime. They gave us the date of May as the latest. So what I felt was appropriate was that the applicant provide us at least $10,000 for a stormwater bond, and that we would hold it, accept that money, and when the work would be completed, we would return it back to the applicant.
So we already issued the TCO.
That's correct.
So then we really don't have any leverage anyway.
We have 10,000, I have a $10,000 check, which I would consider leverage.
Mr. Solari?
No TCO has been issued yet. I'm still waiting for the fire department to sign off. So at this moment, there is no TCO issued.
So Mr. Tanzi, I thought this was off like a foot. I didn't realize it was off 20 feet. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's only 10 feet, but it's not off a foot. The odds of us getting a 10-year storm or greater in the next couple of months is very low. It will contain stormwater in the interim until it's reworked to meet the dimensions that was approved on the site plan.
Mr. Solari, are you only giving a TCO for one building or two buildings?
The TCO is going to be for both buildings because he's got one rented fully and he's got one rented all but one, I think, or two small units. But the buildings are mostly filled.
Pardon my ignorance, bonds aren't my area of expertise. If I know Mr. Tansey said it was unlikely, and I agree. If there was a larger storm that did break this containment basin and damage surrounding abutting properties, would that $10,000 bond be used to make those people whole, or is it strictly for the completion of the basin?
It would be to make sure that the applicant finished the basement. So we take the money, they would finish it, and then they would ask for the money back.
But usually when we take a bond, there's a scope of work, like we know what needs to be done. How do
If-
we know this isn't a $30,000 job?
If you would like me to ask the applicant for a scope of work, I can do so.
Well, but isn't that the point of doesn't the as-built show what's not correct? And
Yeah,
how-
it's
and how far it's off?
Yes, and we reviewed the as-built.
So how many square feet needs to be excavated?
Let me look at it.
I was
I
under the impression it was a depth issue and it was only off by a little bit. I didn't realize it's 20 feet off in width. How long is it?
I would say they need to go a little bit further to the west. Yeah, because where they there's a 79-foot elevation that should have included a little bit more of the stormwater basin.
Can you share the plan, Shane? Do you have it up?
So when you say volume, what did the engineer tell you what it's off in terms of volume? Is it at 80% capacity, 70, 60?
He determined it based on year storm. So let me pull up what was approved. So this is the stormwater area that we approved.
Yeah, but where's the detail? Where are the elevations?
I don't know, this is the minor modification plan. Let me see if I can pull that up. So here's the same sheet. Said there's no detail sheets on the minor modification plan. I can pull up the other plan, but I can pull up the as-built that was provided to us. So as you can tell, the stormwater area over here would have to be extended.
Can you go back to the original?
Yeah, I have to pull up. That was the minor modification plan that you guys saw in, I forget what, it doesn't say the month on it.
And go back to what was built?
Sure thing. So, yes, the applicant or the contractor is going to have to come in. And what they stated to us is at least a day's worth of work to be completed prior to May. And I'm hoping that they can do that sooner if we get some nicer weather. The issue is that they have a tenant that they are looking to put into the building. And the ability for them to go out to there with the ground the way it is would make it difficult. So that's where the number of 10,000 came up, because that's a typical stormwater bond number that I've utilized in the past.
Yeah,
Other city-
but that's for maintenance. That's not for construction.
I get you.
10,000, that's to mow it. You know, that's to make sure it's mowed and cleaned. I don't know. Any other board questions?
I have a bit of a comment, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Ms. Pagan.
With the scope of work that's gonna need to be done, Shane, is it possible, with the parking lot being as close as it is on that side to that detention basin? Again, my concern is mostly, they've already gone through and finished part of this. There's a risk of them damaging that new parking lot and damaging the, groundwork beneath it if they have to dig and excavate through. Again, the bond itself feels like it's low to me, because there's that risk that if the parking lot's damaged while they're doing this construction, it could also affect the basin itself on that side. So if they have to go in with like a Bobcat or, a small truck, I mean, that's gonna lead to bigger damage to that lot. And I would see that being more than the $10,000 that you're saying that it would be for a 1 day or 2 day construction job. Because if they damage the pavement, they damage the curbing, that's going to need to be replaced too, and that's an additional cost.
Yeah, I would say that most often that people don't attribute costs for possible damage in terms of their billing as well. So I just would say that regardless that those costs wouldn't be considered. But I would say that that is a risk that could occur in terms of bringing heavy equipment to something that's already been kind of laid out.
But looking at those elevations, Greg, it looks like all the work's gonna be done on the north side of the lot, correct?
Yeah, yes.
So Ms. Pagano, it's gonna be far away from the,
No, on the basin, they'll push the south side of that basin out
the south
For-
side. Towards
for the south.
Right.
And it probably isn't quite, I mean, just looking at it, it's less than 20 feet. I was going by memory. I mean,
20 feet, but how long is that basin? It's gotta be over 100 and something feet.
I gotta check
do
this.
they show the length of that southern property line?
I'm looking at the scale. Just don't. Eric uses. It's a little over. Both basins are pretty much. The one that's currently there looks like it's about 90 feet, whereas the one that's, like Greg said, about 10 feet off.
All right. But what's the other dimension?
For the other way.
I'm just trying to figure out how big of a repair this is, and just how many square feet of land are we looking that has to be excavated?
I would say that he doesn't give us a depth per se. I would say I have the topography of at the highest height is 79 for both on the as-built as well as the proposed one. So depth wise, it doesn't look like it's off at all. You know, you have a top elevation of 79 and a bottom elevation of 76 on both. So
Right, but the whole basin's too small. So you're gonna move the whole thing out. So you have to excavate all that material.
yes, that's why I stated that it would be at least 1 or 2 days worth of work that Gabriel would have to do.
But how do we know that? Do you agree with that, Greg?
Yeah, he won't have to bring material onto the site. He will be just excavating.
I mean, they're
and
taking a lot of material out.
they'll probably have to take some material out. But you know, I don't know. I think Gabriel might have to just do it at his own expense because.
No, I agree. I mean, that's between the two parties. but
Right.
I'm just making sure that, hey, if we give a TCO, you know, once people are occupying those places and we need something fixed and it doesn't comply with our stormwater, you know, we have, I mean, think about the position we're in. We only have $10,000. What are we gonna do? What are we gonna do with the $10,000? Enter onto that property and fix it? I'd rather, that's why I didn't know if there's another way to handle it. Like, could we issue a TCO for one building now and have them fix it, and then the other building? Are you issuing TCOs by units? I just want to make sure that it's fixed so that there aren't issues with surrounding properties. And I don't know if $10,000 is sufficient. And then if it isn't, then how do we deal with it? What's our leverage?
I would say that just based on my own opinion, professional staff opinion, that $10,000 should suffice for the work to be done, as well as enough where the applicant should come back and ask for that bond money back with completed work reviewed by staff.
I just don't know what we're voting on because I don't, you know.
It would be the voting to accept a $10,000 check I have in
Right, but
my office.
I'm still trying to understand how much work is there. That's all.
Sure.
And what could be the potential adverse impacts if we do get a storm, if it doesn't get fixed for a year? I mean,
I have to agree with Mr. Driscoll. Respectfully, it seems a little haphazard the method that this is being approached in, where it's a fairly unscientific process that this bond amount was reached at. That just seems like a bit of a funny way to do things.
I would say it's not completely off to what most municipalities do. But if you would like me to ask for the owner of the property to provide an amount from the contractor, I'd be happy to get that to the board for the next meeting.
I know that would work for me. I don't know if anyone else feels the same. Then we actually have a concrete figure to work off of.
Mr. Chairman,
sure, Ms. Fagon.
I echo what Michael's saying. I don't feel comfortable taking a vote on this right now because of the fact that we're dealing with just a $10,000 amount without any more substantive scope of work or detail as to what's actually going to be conducted to do this repair. I feel like we're being held hostage in this to say, go ahead and do this. And yeah, we get the 10,000. It just feels artificially low to me and suspect that this will guarantee that they'll do it right. Because right now we have for a fact that they didn't do it right the first time. And having the amount be $10,000 without a scope of work, without a further detail as to what's going to go into this, I feel like we're being held to the flame on this without some stronger statement to say, yes, we have all this, we agree. This $10,000 bond estimate, this check that we're getting is sufficient to cover the work that's going to be done based upon A, B, C, and D of the work that's going to be done by the contractor to make this detention basin whole and this site eligible for not just the TCO to go forward, but also eventually the CO. I feel like we're being disadvantaged here in some manner. I just feel like we need to ask for a little bit more.
I have a question, Mr. Solari. You could issue a TCO just for one building right now to keep businesses moving and stuff like that, correct?
I can do whatever, as you know, in our bylaw, before I issue a TCO, it has to be approved by the planning board or the planning department before I can issue a TCO. So
what I'm saying is that's going to be two separate buildings, correct?
I have two TCOs, right? Correct.
So to work with the developer while we get some more information on this and make sure we have a sufficient bond, maybe a compromise is the building that he has fully rented out, you could issue the TCO on now, and then we'll discuss, get more information on the scope of work, the amount of work that needs to be done and set a bond before the second TCO is granted, and we can address that on the 19th.
I can do whatever the board wants me to.
I mean, we have zero information as to how many cubic yards need to be removed, how much work needs to be done. I thought it was a foot. Now I'm hearing it could be up to 20. I mean, it could be substantial work, and I don't want to vote on something and not have sufficient insurance that it gets done.
I'm comfortable with that idea, Pat.
All right, we can come back at the next meeting and we can talk about it, and I can get an amount from the owner and from his contractor, and we can go from there.
Okay, but just so we have some control over that getting done, Mr. Solari, you'll only issue one TCO at this point, correct?
Yeah, through Shane, I'll figure out what the owner what he wants to do. Or which building he's looking for. And again, I am still waiting on the fire department. There's some questions about smoke detectors, so that's just kind of holding on right now, waiting for.
Yeah. We'll take a vote on that?
Well, we don't have to take any action. Well, yeah, I guess you can take a vote on that.
So does somebody want to make a motion to only allow Mr. Solari to issue one TCO for one of the buildings and not the other building, and then revisit this on the 19th with proper information?
Can we just,
Would I like to make a motion?
Can't we just make a motion to continue this till the 19th?
I'll
We can-
second it.
All
I
right.
don't think we need to really state that Mr. Sly is gonna issue one TCO,
Okay, all right.
right?
We'll continue this. So we have a motion by Mr. Geller to continue this to the 19th, a second by Ms. Pagone.
I think they were on different, were they on different motions?
No.
Okay.
So just for discussion, I would just say that, in this discussion, obviously, we give Mr. Solari I mean, he can do whatever he wants anyway, but we'd be okay with one TCO at this point. So, any further discussion?
Nope, sounds good to me.
All right, Ms. Pagone,
Yes.
Mr. Geller,
Yes,
Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
and I'm a yes.
And I'll just
Right.
make a comment. In the future, if we're requesting some sort of stormwater bond, I'll make sure to get something to provide to the board.
Well, there's two different things. I mean, there's a stormwater bond that we require for some projects, but then this is a construction bond. Like the stormwater bonds that we request, the 5 of the 10,000 relate to maintenance. That's what our stormwater bond is. When we look at construction, Shane, that's a totally different animal. I mean, to build the stormwater basin could be hundreds of thousands of dollars. The stormwater bond that we have is a stormwater maintenance bond. We typically require that to make sure the bond is functioning properly for X amount of time. And if it's not being maintained, the town can step in and mow it and do things of that nature. So that $5,000 or $10,000 has nothing to do with construction.
I get you.
All right, so moving on, Shane, ADU guidelines.
Yeah, I just sent you guys over, state finalized their accessory dwelling unit guidelines. I just want the board to look them over because we are on the 19th having a joint meeting with the CED committee to discuss the accessory dwelling unit language that we workshopped with them. So check over those guidelines. I think we're pretty good in terms of compliance with it. But just check them over, just see what the state has put out there.
Okay, and that ADU hearing is the 19th, correct?
That is correct, February 19th.
Great, thank you. So Shane, next up, 53G accounts.
Yes, so I was talking to the finance director a couple weeks ago, as well as looked over some older accounts that we had. This kind of came about through looking at a refund from the Perkins Foundry project. So it turns out we actually have a fair amount of 53G accounts that haven't been reimbursed back to applicants. Let me share that on my screen. So looking these over, it looks like when we had, I believe it was HML Associates perform peer reviews for the planning board. There were amounts that we held on to. We did pay them, which is good. But regarding these projects, we were holding money still that should be returned to the applicants because of this money wasn't spent on the peer review. So what I would be looking for at some point, if the board would like to look this over or have a vote tonight, is that we would return these monies back to the applicants from the original owners who provided us with the checks.
Pat, you're muted.
So do we have so this is, somebody provided us with an accounting showing that this was the balance, correct?
That is correct. This is what we are holding into these accounts. So what I provided in the packet are invoices that were provided to us from HML. I could not find the original amount provided, but my assumption is that HML was paid with these amounts because some of the amounts were below. I think typically we would ask for 2,500, and then they would invoice us an amount or an amount higher than 2,500 in certain cases when it comes to subdivisions. they would invoice us the work that this done, and then whatever's left over, we kept in the 53G account. But that remaining amount requires board action to be returned to the owners who gave us the original check. So technically, we shouldn't be holding any of this money. They should all go back to the applicants because work wasn't completed for these projects.
So Shane, should we create, I mean, typically they have to request this. Should we create some like form letter that they can all sign and then we can vote to release them all?
That's totally fine by me if we want to reach out to them. You know, I know there's some familiar names on here.
I mean,
I'm
I
sure.
think we could track all these people down and tell them they have, I mean, maybe what we could do through the office is contact all these people, say, hey, you know, you have 500, 1,500, 3,000, whatever it is.
Mhm.
Write us a letter to release it to you and we'll vote to release it. I mean, that's typically how we have to do it, right? They need to.
Well, I would say in some cases, but I would say historically, based on some minutes that the board had voted in the past to just release any remaining 53G accounts from a certain period of time. But either way that we want to take the approach on it, I'm happy to reach out. Like I said, I have contacts for most of these people.
So do you want us to just vote tonight to contact and release these?
I would leave it up to the board's expertise on this matter. I leave it up to you guys. I would say no one's requested this money, but I can reach out to people beforehand and then we can hold a vote at either the 19th of February or the 19th of March. So I can reach out. I can give the board an update on responses and then we can kind of go from there.
Yeah, why don't you reach out to them and if you want, I mean, typically we'd ask for something signed saying, please release the money to us. So what does finance want? Just a vote from us?
No, I just had a discussion with finance in terms of what the amounts were. So, you know, I think Lori Guarini kind of expected me to kind of find out where these amounts are if they looked accurate. You know, this sheet actually included some ZBA as well as some stormwater money that I didn't include but looking this over, these were the ones where pretty much it was the amounts that were reflected of HML Associate invoices and peer reviews that we're just still holding on to, even though the work and the projects have been completed.
Right, so you're gonna reach out to all these people.
Hmm.
You're gonna ask them to send us a letter asking to release it? Or you're just gonna reach out to them? No, we're gonna.
I'll do like a generic letter, dear sir or madam. We've noticed that we have remaining funds in our 53G account. If you are interested, it's, you know, it's like those commercials you hear on the radio that you got money hidden somewhere. So it'll be kind of like that.
All right. And then we can maybe vote on all of them on the 19th.
Sure.
All right. Any board discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Ms. Pagano, go ahead.
I would say in the letter, Shane, I wouldn't say may, you should probably say you are entitled to the monies back that you provided to the town as part of the bond, which is no longer needed at this time. And it'd probably just be a little more concise and stronger verbiage, because that way it'll tip off these individuals to actually follow through. Oftentimes I find if you strongly word the letter in a way that encourages them to actually follow through and fill out the form, it gets the point across. I tend to do this a lot when it comes to real estate taxes and personal property where I currently work.
All right.
And I guess just who are you dealing with this, Mrs. Greeny?
Yeah. And well, these are just accounts that we've established through 53G, or I don't even know if we voted for some of these to be 53G just through a peer review process. So from my standpoint is that we shouldn't be holding any 53G money. This kind of came about with our work through Perkins Foundry in terms of Howard Stein Hudson, where we actually got a refund because they didn't do as much work as they said they would, or that, you know, there was some money carried over. So this kind of came about with that. So I wasn't going to just reach out to the folks that are doing the Foundry project, but I just wanted to reach out to everyone because you know, we're holding $16,000 that we technically shouldn't be holding, or they should ask for it back.
Yeah, I mean, I just never, we've always had a request come in from the applicant. We vote on the request and then we send a letter to finance to release the money. I just
Yeah.
think it's the best process. So let's ask everybody to, let's notify everybody they have a balance, what the balance is, and ask them to submit a letter to release it to them.
Sure.
Okay, all right. Moving on, Route 104 corridor study.
Sure. OCPC is actually in the process of doing a Route 104 corridor study. So I'll share this on the screen a little bit. If you want to throw your phones up to the screen, you can utilize the survey. But OCPC, who is the Old Colony Planning Region, they do tremendous work in terms of transportation corridor studies. They did a Route 18 corridor study that's available that we talked about in the past. That was pretty good. So they're currently working on a Route 104 corridor study. So, you know, share with your friends, family, enemies, as well as if you're watching on the YouTube channel right now, you have plenty of time during me talking to pick up your phone and use your camera and to scan that QR code, or as well as go to the SurveyMonkey /R/Route 104 corridor. And at this point, everyone's camera is clicked successfully on the QR code to
Yeah, 'cause
utilize
this-
the survey.
That's pretty important. Is that something that should be on the town webpage?
Yeah, I can place it on the town website. They did provide us with some press information. So I'd be happy to tell the powers that be to place that on the town's website.
Great. All right, thank you. Items for the 19th?
Right now it looks like just everything that was kind of continued, as well as the joint meeting for, I think the big one is the joint meeting with the CED committee. Actually, as well as the street acceptance recommendation for Firefly Lane that you and I talked about, Pat.
Yeah.
So those are kind of the two big items, as well as everything on for the other business. I will hopefully get as much information as I can to you guys for that meeting. But other than that, that should be it. And then as well as that, after that, we have no meeting until March 19th, which 43 Rear Central Square has been continued to.
So just so we're on the same page for the 19th with the street acceptance, because I know we have a certain number of days to have a hearing.
Mhm.
Mr. Tanzi, is DPW and the water department and your department doing their analysis of that street? And will we have recommendations from everybody to consider before we make a recommendation on that street acceptance?
Yes, yeah.
And just to note too, I believe it was either 2023 or late 2022 that we did release the remaining bond money from Firefly Lane. So we do have that.
I believe we also released the stormwater maintenance bond, which we would have to reestablish.
Yeah, we can look into that.
All right, so but we will have all, so this has been sent to everybody, water. Everybody.
Yeah,
to-
typically when we get a street acceptance, that information through the street acceptance process is sent to the proper channels as per the requirements of town code.
Okay, all right, thank you. Any other reports? Staff, no?
No, not at this time.
Item 6, adjournment. Do we have a motion to adjourn
Motion to adjourn?
by Ms. Pagan? A second
Second.
by Mr. Geller. Any discussion? Mr. Geller,
Yes.
Ms. Pagan,
Yes.
McDonald,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Good night, everyone.
Hey, everyone.
There we go.
Good night.